Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive?
Huh?
Today we're talking about something kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Scientists think they might have found a way to manipulate aging, like actually control it.
Not just slow it down.
Right, like at the cellular level.
It all starts with this tiny structure in our cells called the nucleolus.
Oh yeah, I vaguely remember that from bio class.
It's been a while.
Definitely. Anyway, we've got this article from Nature Aging,
It's a fascinating one.
and there's a ton of chatter about it online, especially on Reddit.
The Everything Science subreddit is blowing up.
Yeah, they're saying this nucleolus thing could be like a mortality timer for cells.
Timer.
Yeah. Wow. Right. But before we get into that,
Sure.
can you remind us what the nucleolus even is?
Absolutely. So basically, it lives inside the nucleus of a cell,
Okay.
and it's like a little factory that makes ribosomes.
Ribosomes. Those are the things that,
They build proteins.
right. Proteins, the essential workers of our bodies.
Exactly. They keep everything running.
So is this research saying that the size of the nucleolus, like the size of the factory,
Uh-huh.
determines how long a cell lives?
You got it. They found that a smaller nucleolus means a longer lifespan for the cell.
Whoa. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It's like a built-in clock ticking away.
So how did they even figure that out? Did they just watch cells age under a microscope?
Well, they did observe that naturally, yeah.
Okay.
But they took it a step further.
Like what?
They engineered special yeast cells.
Yeast cells.
Yeah, they're actually great for studying this kind of stuff.
Oh.
Anyway, they engineered them to specifically control the size of the nucleolus,
Oh, wow.
separate from any other factors.
So they could isolate that one variable.
Exactly. And guess what?
Right.
Just keeping the nucleolus small was enough to make those cells age way slower.
So it's not just a correlation. They actually proved that the size directly impacts aging.
It's pretty convincing stuff.
But wait,
Yeah.
isn't it a big jump to assume that what works in yeast will work in humans?
That's the good point.
Like, are we really that similar to yeast?
Well, yeast cells are a really good model for studying basic cellular processes.
Okay.
And a lot of what we know about human biology actually came from studying yeast first.
Huh? Interesting.
But you're right, we definitely need more research to see if these findings hold true in human cells.
So smaller nucleolus, longer life.
Yep.
But how does that actually work? Like, what's the mechanism behind this whole timer thing?
All right, so here's where it gets really wild.
Okay, I'm listening.
The nucleolus doesn't just gradually expand throughout a cell's life. It stays pretty small for a while, and then all of a sudden, it gets bigger right before the cell dies.
Whoa, that's weird.
It is. It's like there's a trigger that flips.
Damn boob.
The nucleolus goes haywire.
So what's causing this sudden change?
Well, the research has a possible explanation.
Okay, what is it?
They think as the nucleolus expands,
Yeah.
it basically becomes leaky.
Leaky. What does that mean?
It means things can get in that aren't supposed to be there.
Okay, so what kind of trouble does that cause?
Well, the stuff inside the nucleolus,
Like what?
ribosomal DNA or rDNA,
Okay.
it's super fragile.
Fragile how?
It's really easy to damage.
Got it.
So when harmful molecules leak in,
Uh-huh.
they can mess up the rDNA.
And what happens then?
That's when things really go south.
How so?
This damage to the rDNA can lead to genomic instability.
Genomic instability.
They sound serious.
It is. It's like a software error in the cell's programming.
Oh, wow.
It messes up the cell's ability to function.
And eventually.
Thus dies.
So the nucleolus getting bigger isn't just a sign that the cell is dying.
Yep.
It's part of what's making it die.
You got it. Like a self-destruct button.
That's crazy.
It is pretty wild.
So that's why they're calling it a mortality timer.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's not just a passive indicator of age.
Mm-hmm.
It's an active part of the aging process itself.
Pretty amazing stuff, huh?
It really is. This is all so fascinating.
Yeah, it really makes you think. Okay, so we've got this potential mortality timer thing going on inside our cells.
Yeah, pretty wild stuff.
And it all comes down to how big the nucleolus is.
Uh-huh.
This is all pretty complex.
It is.
Like, what are the chances that we could actually use this to manipulate aging in humans?
Yeah.
We're talking immortality here.
Immortality is...
Or is that just sci-fi?
Yeah, immortality might be a bit of a stretch.
Okay.
But this research does open up some pretty exciting possibilities.
Like what?
Well, researchers are really interested in studying this in human stem cells.
Stem cells.
Yeah.
Those are the cells that can...
They can turn into any other type of cell.
Right. They have so much potential.
Exactly. And that's what makes them so powerful.
Okay, I'm following.
Stem cells can replenish dying cells.
So they're like the repair crew for our bodies.
You got it. They're constantly fixing things.
But I thought stem cells could do that forever.
Well, unfortunately, even stem cells have a limited lifespan.
Oh, really?
Yeah, eventually they just stop dividing.
And that's part of why we age.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So if we could keep the nucleoli in our stem cells small and healthy, they could just keep dividing and dividing.
Potentially, yeah.
And that would mean we could delay aging.
It's
To
possible.
regenerate our bodies more effectively.
Exactly. It's like giving our cellular repair crews a much longer contract.
So they can keep our bodies running smoothly for years to come.
That's the idea.
Wow, that would be a game changer.
It would definitely have a huge impact on age-related diseases.
And potentially extend our lifespans.
That's the hope.
It seems like we're not just talking about living longer.
Nope.
We're talking about living healthier for longer.
Absolutely. Quality of life is just as important as quantity.
This is amazing.
Yeah.
But what are the biggest challenges researchers face in actually developing therapies based on this?
One of the biggest hurdles is figuring out how to actually target the nucleolus in human cells.
Okay.
Like, how do we do that safely and effectively?
Right. We don't want to mess things up.
Exactly. We need to understand how this mortality timer works in humans first. So there's still a lot of research to be done.
Definitely.
But let's say for a second that they do figure it out.
Okay.
What would the implications be? Wouldn't a longer lifespan lead to overpopulation?
That's a valid concern.
And wouldn't it put a strain on resources?
Those are all things we would need to consider carefully.
Yeah, this isn't just about science anymore.
Right. It becomes a social and economic issue, too.
And an environmental one.
Absolutely. If we were going to extend human lifespans, we'd need to think about the impact on the planet.
We need a plan.
We would.
It sounds like this research is forcing us to confront some really big questions.
It is.
About what it means to be human and what kind of future we want.
It's a big responsibility.
This is all pretty mind-boggling.
It is.
We've got this potential mortality timer ticking away in our cells.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
And manipulating it could lead to some incredible breakthroughs.
It could.
But there's still so much we don't know.
It's true.
And so much to consider.
We need to be careful.
So where do we even go from here?
Well, this is just the beginning.
Okay.
The researchers need to do more studies.
Especially in humans.
Right. It's a long road from a discovery in yeast cells
to an actual therapy for humans.
Absolutely. But this research is definitely a promising new avenue.
Yeah, it could change everything.
It really could.
It's a pretty exciting time to be following this field.
It is. Who knows what other secrets we'll uncover.
Right. But before we get too carried away,
okay,
let's bring it back to the present.
Sounds good.
And go over some of the key takeaways from this study.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so let's recap this whole mortality timer thing.
Sounds good.
We started with the nucleolus, that little ribosome factory in each cell.
Right.
And it seems like the size of that factory is linked to how long a cell lives.
Smaller nucleolus, longer life.
Exactly. Like a built-in gauge for aging.
And remember, researchers actually proved this by messing with the size of the nucleolus in yeast cells.
Yeah, they found that keeping it small could actually delay aging.
Pretty amazing, right?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And what's even weirder is that the nucleolus doesn't just get bigger gradually over time.
Mm-hmm.
It stays small for a while, and then boom.
Right before the cell dies, it suddenly gets bigger.
It's like a switch flips.
And the research suggests this sudden enlargement is part of what's killing the cell.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The bigger nucleolus gets leaky, and then harmful molecules can get inside and damage the DNA.
The DNA that's responsible for making ribosomes.
Exactly. It's super fragile.
And that damage eventually leads to the cell dying.
It's like a chain reaction.
So this isn't just a sign of aging.
Nope.
It's part of what's causing the aging.
Exactly. It's an active player in the process.
That's a huge discovery.
It is, but we got to remember this research was in yeast cells.
Right.
We still need to see how it works in humans.
But just imagine if scientists figure out how to safely control nucleolus size in humans.
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
We could potentially have new therapies for all sorts of age-related diseases.
And maybe even extend our lifespans.
Imagine living longer and healthier.
It would change everything.
It really would. But it also brings up some big ethical questions.
Oh, Zephyr.
Like, should we even be messing with something as fundamental as aging?
That's a debate we need to have as a society.
For sure, scientific progress can't happen in a vacuum.
We have to think about the ethical implications, too.
Well, this research has certainly given us a lot to think about.
It has. It's both exciting and a little scary.
It is. It makes you wonder what the future holds.
That's the beauty of science. It always pushes the boundaries of what we know.
And it makes us question everything.
It does. So on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive
into the fascinating world of the nucleolus
and its potential role as a cellular mortality timer.
We hope you learned something new today.
And that it sparks some interesting thoughts.
Definitely. This is the kind of stuff that keeps me up at night.
Me too. It's just so fascinating.
So here's a final question for you all to ponder.
Okay, what is it?
If we could safely and ethically control nucleolus size in humans, what would you choose? Would you want to extend your own lifespan? And if so, why?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
It is, but it's one worth thinking about.
Definitely. So until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of science.
We'll see you then.